Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Serious Games module, and also a very warm welcome to your fourth year in either computer games development or computer games technology at UWS. And I hope you have a good year, even though it's probably not off to the best start. But we will do our best in these unprecedented times. And as you can see, we're having to be quite adaptive and produce sort of online remote material. And this is my sort of attempt at it. I've decided to put the slides onto my big TV in my living room, and then I'll sort of talk through them. Also, I'll make the sort of bare slides available in my UWS, and you can watch this YouTube video as well. If you don't like this particular method of delivery, then do let me know, and I can just make a recorded PowerPoint video where you see my little head, or it can just be a voiceover recording, or whatever you prefer. Or I can even just give you the slides and you can read them yourself, whatever you want. Anyway, I'm Thomas Haney. You probably have met me at some point. I teach in level year 1, 2 and 4, and I'm the program leader of computer games development. So at some stage you've probably met me, and if not, nice to meet you. Although I don't think there are any direct entrants into year 4, only in the rare occasions, but you should all probably know me anyway. So, Serious Games, this is a really, really interesting module. So, it's using computer games technology or computer games development and technology for the purposes of education and training, and not necessarily towards entertainment and leisure. So, it's different sorts of application of everything that you've learned up until this point. Obviously, when you're producing a game up until this point, you're thinking has to be fun, has to be for entertainment, but not always. You can have games that are for the purposes of training and for education. So, the module code, I believe, is comp10010. But don't quote me on that. So, I've got a number of sort of oh my god, you can see how many laser there, that's amazing. So, I'm having fun already. So, this is a small example. On this slide, I've just put a few examples of Serious Games and their applications, so you can get a little bit of an overview. This particular game is called Tactical Iraqi, and it was for language education and for etiquette education as well. And the entire idea was that they were supposed to, military personnel were to play it and be able to resolve difficulties and issues without bloodshed. Now, the empirical evidence associated with Tactical Iraqi is actually quite interesting. It was given to 2 battalions, I believe, that went on a tour of duty, and only one battalion had any fatalities, or one battalion had no fatalities. So the empirical evidence is quite interesting in that sense, where you can put a positive spin on it. This is just a sort of medical simulation, of which there are many. Obviously, someone is taking a wee blood test there. This game is called Virtual Leader, and it's to try and teach people about managerial, collaborative, team building, soft skills, that sort of thing. And again, the empirical evidence associated with this is quite good, well, quite fun, because if you look on their website, it has a number of sort of unconvincing bar graphs. So it says, if you learn through traditional methods, you will learn this much, but if you learn through our game, you will learn this much. So empirical evidence has to be more or less taken with a pinch of salt. This game is called Remission, and it was to try and get people more involved in their cancer treatment. So it can be very, very serious. This game is called America's Army, and it's the official US Army game, and it's really for the purposes of recruitment. So they developed this and made it freely downloadable to convince an entire generation of Americans that being shot at was fun. So not only for sort of training purposes, but can be used for recruitment purposes as well. This game is called Zombie Division. So the entire, obviously, mathematical education. And this little skeleton would go around, or many skeletons would go around with a little number on them, and the character would have to select the appropriate divisor in order to vanquish said enemy. This particular game here, very, very funny indeed, because it's called River City. Oh, Bob, oh, Charlie, we were good together. Not that River City, not the sort of moronic River City that paints Scottish people in a really bad light. But it's a game to attempt to teach people about scientific inquiry. And it's funny because of that, but it's also funny because in the game they have three particular options. There's a disease that is rife, it's killing people, and there's three particular causes or three particular ways that it's actually transmitted. One of them is through the air, could be airborne. The other one is via touch, and the other one is possibly through the water. And it's called River City. So I fear that the mystery is solved. This is just Second Life. There's been many, many serious game attempts in Second Life, just implemented in Second Life, particularly for software engineering, I've noticed. But this is Coventry University's Ireland in Second Life. And I was at the Serious Virtual Worlds conference in 2007 when they in fact unveiled this. And it was a great moment because I remember Professor Sarah de Freitas actually cutting the ribbon and then nothing happened because Second Life just crashes all the time. Or it did at that particular point. My God, that was 13 years ago. Oh dear. This is another sort of medical simulation as well, using the Oculus Rift. Obviously, serious games and computer games in general have been seriously influenced by rapid advancements in technology. And here we can see that, you know, virtual reality, augmented reality, mobile technology is all starting to affect serious games in particular ways. But we will talk about that at some stage. So, been used in a number of applicable areas: computing, science, programming education, medical education, flight simulators. Here's one here, flight simulator, military simulations as well. So the list is endless. I shall put up a sort of number of systematic literature reviews that we have performed, and they show that serious games have been used in almost limitless number of application areas. It's actually quite astounding how many applicable areas there are. So, as I've said, language education, mathematical education, the list goes on. So, the main thing to remember about serious games, particularly with important things like flight simulators, medical simulators, or simulations or games, and military simulations, is the main appeal is that the risk is more or less dissolved. There is no great risk to human life. So that's generally why people take an interest in serious games to start with. But also, sugarcoating the learning process is a big, big business. And the European Commission, for example, used to fling funny money at that sort of thing. If you're sugarcoating the learning process, then we want to be part of it, and here's tons of money to develop that and make it happen. So, if you're going to be asking why serious games, why it's so serious? My father was a drinker and a fiend. Why so serious? So that's why serious games, essentially. Okay? So very, very interesting research field as well. Very publishable area. If you look at my sort of Google Scholar, you can see that I have an extensive publication list, all associated with serious games. So people do very, very well out of this particular area. And also, you don't always get the job that you want. Life will throw you a curveball. So you might not necessarily get a job developing a AAA game for Sony or whatever, but you might end up working in the serious games industry, and there's a lot of money to be made there. And basically you're just using the skills that you've learned, and putting it into a sort of different application. So it's worthwhile knowing about. Okay. So you know me already. The fact that I'm an E359 is irrelevant because we're probably not going to be in the campus. ever again. No, until COVID-19 is more or less a thing of the past. I don't know when that's going to be. I'm not God. There are some campus safety requirements and all that sort of thing, so people are going into the campus when they really, really have to, but in terms of this course, we don't have to, and when we work remotely, or when we can work remotely, we're supposed to. So in terms of contacting me, that is in my mobile number, which is 0771 2673509. Please feel free to contact me between the hours of 9 and 5, Monday to Friday. If you have any issue with courseworks, particularly the computer games development honours students as well with the course. But obviously if you get any questions associated with this module, I'm quite happy to speak to you. I know you're all millennials and you fear phone calls, but it is an olive branch, so sometimes it's much, much better just picking up the phone and getting all your sort of queries resolved that way. And I'm relatively approachable and I don't mind you phoning me. That's absolutely fine. You can also email me if you want, and I'm also on Discord. I haven't put that on these slides, it's in some of the slides anyway. You'll find it out. You can email me about courseworks and things like that. What I don't necessarily want is a list of 25 questions in one email, because it just takes me forever to answer them all, and I'm not going to do that. So that's why you've got my phone number. Some of these things are more easily resolvable if you just speak to me. And you would be able to speak to me if I was in the campus. So that's why I'm giving you my phone number this year. And you'd be able to contact me if we were in the office. So it's just trying to keep everything as normal as possible, if it can be. Right, so I've said I'm the module coordinator. In terms of delivery, I'll aim to do a lecture for every Tuesday and put it on my UWS at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then if we need it, what we'll do is we'll do fortnightly, possibly MS Teams or Discord meetings, or whatever you feel you require, the support that you require. I'm quite happy to support you in any way I can, is basically what I'm trying to say. So anything that you want, let me know. Do have a sort of student representative, go around all the students in the class, collect the issues as well, but also let me know if you're wanting any of these sort of meetings or whatever. I'm quite happy to accommodate in that regard. Okay. I've got this all through my phone and it keeps on flipping and it is distracting me. Okay, so that's all fair enough. You've got all my contact details, that's good. In terms of this module, this Blackadder 2 moment, we're going to run a fast, efficient operation, and I intend to do as little work as possible. Absolutely love that quote. So, module content, we'll be talking about what are serious games, why study them, a lot of money to be made in them, highly publishable area, what are the key concepts behind them, what are the main challenges. So we'll be looking at things like content integration, pedagogical content integration, intrinsic, extrinsic content, assessment integration, so formative and summative assessment, how do you actually put assessment into a serious game, adaptivity and personalization, human factors, how do you evaluate serious games or games-based learning. So we'll do an entire lecture on that. What particular business models is also a bit of a key challenge as well. How do you actually integrate that? So that's kind of loosely related to content integration, but what business models do you actually use? Okay, so in terms of lectures, I intend to do the following. So today is going to be an introduction to the course, coursework specification brief. It's really a proposed coursework specification brief. I want to sort of swing it by you so that you can then go away and tell me whether you think it's fair, whether you've got the equipment, whether you think it's feasible to actually do it this time. Okay? We'll then talk about learning concepts, theories, and models. Sorry, I've made a spelling mistake there. That should, of course, be and models. So we'll be talking about things like cognitive apprenticeship model, looking at motivational theories, flow theories, self-determination theory, all that sort of thing. What are serious games? Got an entire lecture on that, why they're actually worth studying. All of the sort of European projects and everything that I've been a part of, all the graduates of the computer games development and the computer games technology degree streams that have ended up working in the field of serious games and how much money can actually be made from it, which is a lot. Okay, design principles of serious games, human-computer interaction and design principles, graphical user interface implementation principles, all that sort of thing. We'll talk about that in a lecture as well. We could have a consolidation week, but we don't necessarily have to. Again, I will leave that entirely up to you. We'll have a lecture and content integration for serious games, intrinsic, extrinsic, endogenous, exogenous, that sort of thing. We'll look at that in depth. Assessment integration, formative, summative assessment integration. Once again, we'll have a lecture on that. And I've got a number of papers on these particular subjects that I will make available to you. I've just actually finished writing a book chapter on, not the history of serious games, but my part was the history, dating back to the 1970s when the term was first coined, and how serious games have been influenced by technology and the way that society has sort of formulated itself, which is quite interesting. So we'll talk about that. And also, I've got a number of publications and assessment integration of serious games. What particular mechanism was it? Quizzes or whatever. Evaluation of serious games. I've also got a number of publications in that. So I came up with my own evaluation framework for serious games, and I've reviewed a number of others, and we'll talk about how to actually do that. For this particular module, I'd quite like you to do an evaluation plan worth about 20%. Statistical analysis techniques in serious games, that's another thing we can look at. That will definitely help you with your honours projects. I've also got another lecture that could potentially help you with that. So that's searching for, analysing, dissecting and critically evaluating or something. Critically evaluating research papers. So we can have a talk about that as well. And then, if we've got time, we'll sort of round it off with how technology has actually sculpted or affected serious games. So virtual reality, augmented reality, mobile technology, that's all come into it now, and it drastically alters everything, computer games in general, and of course by extension, serious games. Okay. So, the module organisation, there's going to be some form of coursework. It can be individual, you'll be very, very happy to know if you're completely and utterly sick of working with people, or groups of 2 to 4, if you've got a sort of well-known sort of group or a group that's already been formulated, or you've worked with these people before, you can do it in a group of 2 or 4, maybe even a group of 5. I don't particularly mind. But what must be produced has to be the result of 200 student effort hours. So a fair amount of work has to be sort of demonstrated in order to get a reasonable mark. It is a level 10 module. All your modules are going to be relatively difficult this year, so you must try your best. But the main thing is to demonstrate work. It's all about the work ethic. I wouldn't say I'm particularly bright, but I've always worked a lot. Those that aren't so bright, like myself, have to really have it. Okay, so the idea is that you choose a serious game to implement in terms of area. That can be any area you want, whether that's mathematics, biology, music, history, military application. We've even had some people, do a sort of copy training simulation, home economics, that sort of thing. Anything you want. The possibilities are limitless. The only thing that limits the possibilities is your imagination. So quite happy for you to choose any area that you want, and then produce a design for that serious game. Now I've said that that's going to be worth about 30%. We can increase that a little bit if you want. Implement the serious game, actually the implementation is 40% and a showreel is 10%. But we can, if you're having difficulty with the implementation, not if you're having difficulty with the implementation, but if you think that you're not going to be able to implement something particularly great, then we can possibly move 10% of the implementation onto the design. And then of course produce an evaluation plan for the serious game, which is going to be 20%. So it's just a plan, you don't actually have to do an evaluation. So do think about that, what you're sort of wanting that to be like, if it's 30, 50 and 20. Now, because people are working at home, I realise they might have limited access to technology and that might slightly affect them. But what we don't want to do is become entirely lazy. We need show reels and portfolio pieces to come out of this module as well, for you guys to have the best chance for employment. So we need to give that a little bit of thought in terms of, do we want it kept the way it is? Do we want a slight trade-off, or what we want to happen? So it would be preferable to keep it the way it is and have a very, very good sort of portfolio piece. There's been a lot of very good portfolio pieces come out of this module actually. I've kind of put a loose schedule. Last year I was actually teaching at the new Lanarkshire campus as well, but for the Paisley cohort, there is only a Paisley cohort now. Essentially what I was suggesting is there's going to be lectures. This is asynchronous so that you can watch the lectures whenever you want, but I was going to deliver the lecture by 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, and then you can watch it whenever. But I will free the majority of the afternoon for coursework meetings and things like that if you require them. And I also have to sort of have progress meetings with the honours students allocated to me as well. So we can do that on a Tuesday. Generally sort of after the lecture, possibly before is, well, I normally had them the lecture under the normal run of things. What I would do at Paisley campus was I would have the lecture at 10 o'clock, and then after that I would just meet with the different groups, as Gavin sort of does, and then have meetings with honours students as well, my dissertation students I mean. So we can work something out there if you're wanting meetings to discuss courseworks. I assume you do, and it depends what particular vehicle mechanism you're wanting, but I'm quite happy to sort of accommodate. Assessment submission, there'll be a link on my UWS supplied. That's going to be week 12, so Friday the 18th of December at 1600 hours or 4 p.m. Try not to there will be an official link here, so try not to email me these things because they do get lost or blocked by the university firewall. Engagement, it's not really attendance engagement this year, as you can imagine. It's going to be assessment engagement, and meetings is really the only indicator this year. So essentially, if you don't submit, then you won't pass and you won't get your honours distinction until you do. And that is the only mechanism of engagement or indicator of engagement that we have so far. And I'm told that we're going to get a document through relatively soon to see what we could put in place as mechanisms or indicators for engagement, but that's all the information I have at the moment. So for me, that has always been the indicator of engagement. If a student wants to pass, then they'll put in the assessment and everything will be hunky-dory. And if not, then fair enough. I've got a list of sort of recommended reading there. There's an entire book on games-based learning by Thomas Conley, Mark Stansfield and Elizabeth Boyle. This systematic literature review, I'll just put that onto my UWS for you, no problem. This is my doctoral thesis, which once again I can fire straight into the my UWS for you. And most of these papers I have anyway, so I will give them to you. It's recommended reading, doesn't necessarily mean you have to read all of them. One that I definitely would say that you have a look at, or several, would be the Systematic Literature Review of Empirical Evidence on Computer Games and Serious Games. And then an update. Where's the update? Oh dear, I've lost it. Oh, Systematic Literature Review of Games-Based Learning in Primary Education, and then there's an update to that particular Systematic Literature Review in 2012 as well. So I'll make that available too. So that's 3 literature reviews. Now I don't want you to read them per se, but it would be quite nice if you just had a scan through them and realised just how big the area of serious games actually is, and how many areas it's actually being utilised in terms of teaching and training. Okay, so that's that particular one. Let's have a wee quick look at the proposed coursework brief. Okay, so this is open to discussion, and I'm happy to take comments on this and readjust it as you all see fit. But make it unanimous. I'm not going to make adjustments for individuals. We're going to make sure that everyone's quite happy with it, if that makes sense. So it should be a unanimous sort of class decision, okay? So the coursework will have the following 3 assessment constituents. There should be a design document, 30%, implementation, 50%, and evaluation plan, 20%. Okay? So you can form yourself into groups of 1 to 5. How are you going to do that online? I have no idea, but presumably you have friends anyway. You can work individually, that's permissible, I don't mind. Choose a serious game to develop that addresses a problem area with traditional teaching, so it can be maths, languages, project management, or training, medical, disaster training, whatever you prefer. You can look over the course of your degree for inspiration and possibly implement a game to help the first, second, or third year students if you're feeling benevolent. So for example, a game to teach programming, a virtual reality bubble sort. We had someone do that last year. It was actually quite good. And essentially, it could be any subject or training area that you like. Presumably, through the course of your life, whether it's been at secondary school, even primary school, college, or university, you have come up against some subject material and realised, wow, it would be great to have a game to actually teach this, and I can possibly formulate one in my brain or design it. Okay. Design, 30%. I was going to say start with the learning outcomes, so that's going to state 3 or 5 of these, and that's going to be worth 5%. Present a small introduction justification for the development of the game, and try to provide 5 examples or academic references. Best to have academic references. Gavin will be talking to you about academic references, the UWS Harvard style preferably, and that's going to be about 10%. Okay? Then present some form of games design document, some images, UML classes, class diagrams, sprites. Now, in this thing, I particularly want to address assessment and content integration, so I just want them sort of mentioned. I have allocated 5% or 2.5% to each of these in the past. So I'll talk to you about that in greater detail later. But this is just a sort of proposal so that you can give me feedback on it. Okay? So design, UML diagram, some graphics, screen layout, a general game description, not the full blown games design document as you produced in the past. Remember, it's only really worth 15%, so it's 4 to 5 pages maximum. Okay. Now we can fiddle about with the numbers there, but it really depends how you feel about the implementation. Personally, I think the balance is fine, and it depends what you're more comfortable with. If you guys are more comfortable implementing things at home and you're less comfortable with documentation, then we can keep this the way it is. But anyway, it can be in any development environment that you choose. It can be C++, Unity, Unreal, and because of the sort of technical difficulties, I'll even allow GameMaker this year. Oh dear. We're in dire straits. We're at the 10th level of hell when I've actually suggested that. But I'm quite happy any development environment that you choose to develop your serious game. Okay? So the implementation, I'm going to say, is worth 40%. Now these are just suggested things that you can have in it. So gameplay, ingenuity, playability, coding, error checking, version control, documentation, and implementation descriptions as well. Okay? So I do have examples from the past quite clearly of many of these, and very good examples, okay? So I can make them available to you as well. But the main thing to decide here is if you're actually wanting the 40% in the implementation. I can bring that down to 30 and I can distribute the marks elsewhere in the documentation if people are having difficulty with that sort of thing at home. Okay? Right. The implementation is really worth it's 50% overall because of the showreel development. So implementation 40% really, and then there's a showreel demonstration which is 10%. So I would expect maybe a 5-10 minute video showreel that we can use for the promotion of the course, and you can use to finally get employment, or put it into your portfolio. Okay. So screenshots, description of how the game works, instructions, a playable executable of the game. I do not want gigabyte upon gigabyte of Unreal Engine, whatever, flying through at me, assets, blueprints, all that kind of stuff. Because I've sort of had that in the past, where I've actually gone out for an hour and it's been 5 gigabytes of just Unreal, and then when you open it up, it's a wee stick guy running around. So I prefer just the executable of the game. The underlying code scripts, I suppose, would be nice to see, and the descriptions of the relevant functionality. Can be in any technology you want: Unreal, Unity, C++, C#, just as long as it's kind of relatively complex. Now that's what I sort of said in the past to eliminate GameMaker. GameMaker, you can do GameMaker if you want this year, because it is the year of COVID-19. Okay, so that should be relatively clear. Then a sort of video demonstration as well. So evaluation 20%. I do an entire lecture on this, so the evaluation methodology has to be specified. The experimental design, an instrument of some description, meaning some form of questionnaire, yes. Specifying who your participants are going to be or plan to be. You're not actually doing it though. How you're going to analyse that data once it's actually collected. Acknowledgement of the weaknesses of evaluation as well. So generalizability is always a bit of a weakness when associated with serious game. You cannot take one game and apply it to one group of people and then apply it to one subject area and then say that that's instantly generalizable to all groups of people, all subject areas and all games. It doesn't work that way. So generalizability is always a thing. Randomized controlled trials, getting them is incredibly difficult, or actually carrying them out, very difficult. 30 participants, getting participants to actually try out these games is always a bit of a pain as well. So that's always the sort of weaknesses of evaluation. The generalizability, actually performing a randomized controlled trial and getting the appropriate amount of participants as well. So what I mean by evaluation methodology is it's going to be sort of an experimental design. Is it going to be correlational, case study, interview, observation, that sort of thing. So I've written an entire sort of chapter on that in a book at one point, so I'll make that available to you, so that should be easily doable. Let's see if we've got anything else. So, learning outcomes and introduction. Introduce the game concept, subject area, genre, and try to put a little bit of justification into why you're developing that particular game. There should be 3 to 5 learning outcomes. So these are examples. These are the learning outcomes associated with the game to teach requirements collection and analysis at tertiary education level in my PhD. So allow the learner to identify user requirements, yes. Allow the learner to identify system requirements, and allow the learner to identify areas of ambiguity and clarify the requirements. So quite easy. Doesn't have to be encompassing an entire subject area. Very, very easy, concise, specific learning outcomes. Okay. 5 examples, including references, where these types of games have been used in the past, so in your particular subject area. Doesn't necessarily have to be that subject area. It could be a similar subject area, just a sort of similar game, and where these things have actually been used in the past. Now, it's best to actually use academic references, so academic journal papers. So that's kind of what I'm looking for there. Okay, I will elaborate in each of these things during the lectures, particularly content integration, assessment integration, and the evaluation lecture. You never want to miss that. So I will make that entirely clear at the end of the evaluation lecture exactly what I'm wanting in that section. Okay, so learning outcomes is worth 5%. Okay, open to a little bit of debate if you want. Introduction, justification with examples, references, and narrative, 10%. Okay, these are the deliverables. Design, games design document, assessment and content, 15%. Yep. Implementation is 40% with a show reel included, which is worth 10%, so it's really worth 50%. Okay, then an evaluation plan, which is worth 20%. Now, the only thing that I'm asking of you from this particular presentation is to get back to me or discuss it amongst yourselves. We can maybe start a forum or something, or have some form of debate about it. But really what I want to know is, are you happy with the 40% implementation during these current unprecedented difficult times? And if you're not, we can strip 10% off of that and we can allocate it into the design documentation, if that works out to be better for you. I don't necessarily think this is a time to be lazy, because you are all at home, but it just depends on your sort of technological capabilities at home. I would imagine that because you're all game students, you know, sitting with machines that could probably destroy Russia, or like the Death Star or something like that, but I could be very, very wrong. So I need your feedback on that, and I need to make sure that you're sort of happy with the assessment, and if not, I can change it for you. So that's my sort of proposed one. Okay. The lectures will offer additional clarification on the learning outcomes, definitely the design principles, content and assessment integration, and most importantly, the evaluation section. Someone asked me last year, Thomas, is this going to be a full evaluation, or is it a plan? And I said, well, the word plan is very, very critical in this, so it's going to be a plan. I don't want you to do a full evaluation. If you were to do a full evaluation with a serious game, you have to go through university ethics, and you're all going to have to do that for your honours project. So let's avoid that and just call it a plan, okay? And you don't actually have to evaluate anything, you just have to plan to evaluate it, okay? The coursework will constantly be discussed and during the lectures, and will be revealed. So the coursework will constantly be discussed, and during the lectures all will be revealed. That's what I meant to say. So yes, I'll always constantly bring up the coursework. I really know full well that that's all that you guys are really interested in. So you're wanting to get the assessment out of the way and get on with the next stage of your life after you've got the distinction. So basically, the lectures are a nice sort of sugary coated topping of interest, but we'll always be focusing on the prize here. We're always focusing on the coursework and how many marks you can actually get for each thing. So if you just sort of listen to the certain parts of the lectures that are important, particularly the evaluation lecture, that is just you know, a brilliant lecture for the 20%. And if you listen to that, there is no reason that you shouldn't get 20% for that particular component. Okay, right. That is really the end. So I will put that on YouTube, and I'll put it on my UWS. Please give me your feedback on it, and if you're happy with the way the coursework is proposed, then we will simply go ahead with that, and if not, we can adjust some of the marks to make it a little better for people that are possibly sitting at home with limited technology. Okay, so looking forward to really starting the lectures next week, and I'll put up an entire sort of not recommended reading list, but I'll make a number of papers and everything available for your interest. And as always, if you get any difficulty, then either phone me or email me or Discord me, Skype me, whatever. Just let me know. Okay, right. Bye-bye.